So, who are we? We are HackPittsburg. There's a whole bunch of us here, guys. A couple of us came last year, had a really good time, decided to come back out again this year and talk about a little bit of the things that we do and some of the stuff that we're interested in with Propeller. So who are we? We are a hackerspace in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. We're in the wood. We're a diverse group of people, all kinds of interests. We have electrical engineers, computer programmers, musicians, college professors, postdocs, all kinds of people doing all kinds of different things professionally, but we all get together in a big workshop in the middle of Pittsburgh to make all kinds of crazy things. We play around with microcontrollers. There's a prop doing all things video output demo. That was actually one of the things that we played around with as soon as we came back last year. We teach classes, do demos. This is us actually teaching our introduction to soldering class. So we bring people in and show them how to build things. And sometimes we just hang out and do fun. So towards the beginning of this year, we were contacted by another hackerspace right outside of Chicago about a competition that they were putting on that we thought was very interesting. They called it Hackerspaces in Space. The idea of the competition is to build a weather balloon, take pictures of the curvature of the Earth, track it, and successfully recover it. So there's about 20-some spaces around the world that are all competing to see who can do this. The lightest, the fastest, and the cheapest. Your payload has to be under 4 pounds. Your payload has to cost you less than $250, and fastest is all, So we, about a month ago, launched our competition balloon and had some very good results. We launched 97,497 feet, which is way up there. It took us about 2 hours and 30 minutes from the time that we let go of it to the time it was back in our hands again. Our weight was about 2 pounds 3 ounces, so we're pretty good on weight. And we took a bunch of amazing photos. Slow down. So why does we want to present about this at UPENE? So the control system that we're using largely for the tracking is PIC microcontroller based. And then we started wanting to do other things. Our camera is actually just a Canon camera with CHDK on it, but earlier we were just taking cheap little lightweight cameras and hooking up another microcontroller to simulate the button presses to make it actually take in. But we realized that as we were doing this, we were putting in multiple microcontrollers into this thing to run a bunch of little subsystems. And we said, well, a propeller would be great for this because it's one system with a whole bunch of cores inside of it, especially a lot of our things that have to have specific timing could potentially all run together. And we can just input a GPS signal into one microcontroller and share it out amongst all the different cores. So, we really started thinking about the propeller and its capabilities for this. One of the things that we're doing is APRS. APRS is how we actually track our balloon. A bunch of us are ham radio operators, and it's helped us a lot with this project. And APRS takes a GPS signal, converts it over into a packet, converts that packet into audio just like an old modem, and transmits that packet. So in real time, we were actually able to track the progress of the balloon. The green line and all the red dots are actually points that the balloon was traveling. We also like to play around with slow scan TV, which is another system that takes an image, converts that image over into data, and transmits that image. That way, instead of in the end, we're covering our balloon and having to take all of our images and get those at that time, we can see what our balloon's seeing in real time coming back from the balloon. This is a slow scan sample of actually some of the early NASA they were using it. There's also other jobs that we like to do with it. We were playing around with potentially an automated cut down so that when the balloon hits a certain altitude, we actually cut the payload away from the balloon. We need to read in the GPS data to figure out what altitude we're at, and why have separate microcontrollers to do this when the propeller can just do it all in one. If you'd like more info on any of the things that I've talked about, hackerspaces in space, check out workshop88.com/space. Workshop 88 is the other hackerspace in Chicago. APRS, aprs.fi, aprs.org. High altitude ballooning. The Sable and the Bear projects, these guys have been doing this for like 20 years or something like that. But they have amazing photos, lots of really good detailed how-tos on how they're pulling off their balloon flights, and just really great stuff. WB8 this guy also very good resource on the site for high altitude ballooning. If you're interested in hackerspaces, hackerspaces.org, and of course, HackPittsburg.org. Are there any questions? That's the first question. As long as you're under 4 pounds, the FAA does not care. So that's why. Oh, sorry. The question was, did we have to have a clearance from the FAA to launch the balloon? As long as you're under 4 pounds, the FAA doesn't really care. Once you go over 4 pounds, then they start getting concerned and you have to have more clearance. We did contact the FAA, who basically said, why are you calling us? And we said, well, we thought you guys might want to know. Call the airports. So we called the towers. Why are you calling us? Well, we're launching a balloon. Well, where's it going? How high? Approximately 100,000 feet. What? 100,000 feet? That's 100,000 feet. That's not going to be in our airspace. We know, but it has a pet travel through here. So it was, well, even the note of guys. Like, no one actually said it. It's a flying chicken. Any other questions? Come on. The question is, did we cut it down or how did it come down? The high altitude weather balloons are actually designed to pop at 100,000 feet. So as the pressure decreases, as they get higher in altitude, the balloons expand. So it's about 5 to 6 foot diameter at ground level. It increases to about 23 feet at 100,000 feet, and it just pops and then comes plummeting down. We did have a parachute attached to it. It came down faster than we expected, but that's okay. The balloon is actually supposed to shred and go everywhere. Our balloon pretty much stayed intact, so we had an extra 3 pounds that we were not calculating on the way down. So yeah, average out at 60 miles an hour on the way down. But stayed completely intact on the way. And also landed in the middle of the field in the middle of nowhere. Well, sorry, I should say middle of Ohio. And so, definitely worked out for us. Even though we are from Pittsburgh, we actually fly our balloons out of Ohio because it's really flat here. Pittsburgh has lots of hills and valleys and trees and ravines and rivers and just bad stuff that you don't want to avoid. Yes, thank the glaciers, exactly. Although, how far did we have to go to get it? The balloon traveled, as the crow flies, about 35 miles. But we're driving around trying to figure out where it's going. Around Ohio. There are predictions. We had a pretty good idea of where it was going to land. There are websites out there that you can go in and plug in all of your information where you're going to launch from, and it will give you an approximate, this is your target. So what we try to do is we pick a big area in Ohio where it's flat, and there's a lot of farms, and then we figure out, based on the weather conditions, where to launch from to get the thing to land there. Any more questions?
It's on free cable, so yeah.
We don't even remember. I mean, we were in the same general vicinity, but like we really, yeah, it was a hot. we generally try to target something that, within, probably 15 square miles or so. Yeah, I mean, we're sending a balloon at 97,000 feet. I mean, the chances of us getting it exactly where we want it are probably pretty slim. So, how do we track the balloon? It's tracked over the APRS. So the balloon has a GPS in it. Not every GPS will work. If you're interested in doing this, you need to hunt down a GPS that will work. There's a great company called Argent Data Systems that sells a GPS for about $35 a GPS chip that's capable of going. It's capable of going over 60,000 feet. So the government said to the GPS manufacturers, we don't want your GPSs to work over 60,000 feet and at a certain rate. I forget how fast it is. It's pretty fast. Essentially, no making guided missiles with off-the-shelf GPS units. Well, a bunch of lazy programmers said, okay, we won't make it go over 60,000 feet or this fast, and not more. So most GPSs don't work because they split 60,000 feet and they just turn off. So you can find some out there that will, and so we track this. What's our last opportunity to get a signal from the balloon? So our balloon was actually transmitting every 30 seconds where its position was. It gets that GPS data, converts it into a radio signal, sends it out. That gets digital meters and iGates, servers that are radios that are actually connected to the internet, and puts that in. And so we're able to go to that APRS.fi site and real-time track.
Yeah.
Because we're using a low power transmitter, it tends to only work on altitudes above 2,000 feet. Anything below that, it isn't actually able to make it to the digitmeters, the iGates. So we kind of release it, listening to it locally on the ground, hope it hits the digitmeters. Both times we've launched, it has. And then when it comes back down, at a certain point, it stops actually hitting them. So we have a general idea of where the balloon is. We just walk around in the field until we find it. But the funny part is we can't hear it below 2,000 feet. At about 80,000 feet, you can hear the balloon in Canada. So it's pretty good.
Have you tried like a tracking beacon like the Fox Hunt guys use?
Yeah, so fox hunting, ARDF, or RDF, radio direction finding. We thought about it and we've tried a little bit. So we've launched 2 balloons. You see, we're only really talking about one. The other one got to about 97,000 feet and just disappeared. We never heard from it again. We don't know exactly what happened. We did try to see, like, is it sending out bad radio packets, but still sending radio, and try to track it a little bit there, but there's no luck. So we're really mostly relying on the APRS system to get it in close. We do have a little bit of gear, some directional antennas and things like that to try to actually triangulate it, but we're trying not to do that as our primary tracking system. Now that we're done with the competition, we're thinking about it, because we would like to try to start seeing if we can launch really cheap light balloons that we don't care about as much. All right, I gotta go soon. Go.
Stupid question. Did you have your name and address on the one that got lost?
The question was, do we have our name and address on it? We do not necessarily have our names, but we have our phone numbers on it. So that if someone finds it, it says harmless radio equipment. You don't want to use the B word anywhere on it, because that's the first thing everyone thinks. Oh, something's falling out of the sky, it's a bomb. But no, harmless radio equipment, if found, please call these numbers. So we're really hoping some farmer's going to go start harvesting their corn this fall, or some hunter's going to be wandering around the woods trying to find that big buck, and we're going to get a phone call. I found this weird thing out in the woods. It's one of that. All right, I should probably go there. Anyone else? All right, thank you.